Happy spring, everyone, and welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. My name is Seth Mayo, the curator of astronomy for the Lowland Planetarium at MOAS, and in this program, we're covering the dates of March 21st through March 27th. We're going to start things off by talking about Venus again being at dichotomy when it's half phase, so we'll take a look at that and how that works. Then we'll continue looking in that area as three planets get fairly close to each other in that morning sky that have been really nice to take a look at. And we'll end with a brief mention of the Artemis program, this new mission by NASA to go to the moon again, and the rollout of their rocket that happened recently that we attended. So let's get to it. If you tuned into last week's episode, we did briefly mention that Venus is at dichotomy, and that means that Venus is half full in the sky or at half phase. And even though we mentioned that last week, it's still kind of ongoing this week as well, so it's worth mentioning again for those who might have not had a chance to see this. But if you have binoculars or a telescope and you take a look at Venus in the early morning in the east and southeast just before the sun rises, you may have an opportunity to see this interesting appearance for the second planet from our sun. I'll show it here in Stellarium just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. We'll zoom into Venus, and as we do, you will see that only half of its thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide is being lit by the sun. Just like our own moon behaves when the moon makes a right angle between us and the sun, and that allows us to see just one side of that object. So Venus does the same thing as well. And the nice thing about finding Venus in the sky, it is really, really bright. Looks like the brightest non-twinkling star you have ever seen. And when Venus is highest above the sun at either greatest elongation west or east, that is when Venus is half full, as you see here. And not only is the appearance of this kind of interesting to see, but also what it tells you about the solar system as well. Because for Venus to be able to go through phases, it has to be inside of Earth's orbit. And from our point of view, that allows the planet to be seen from different sides of it as it goes around the sun in its 224-day orbit, a bit faster than ours because Venus is closer to the sun and feels more gravity. So that allows us to see different sides of the planet through most of the phases. So right now, the Earth, the sun, and Venus kind of make a right angle, allowing this to happen. But what's also interesting is that this helped Galileo more than 400 years ago realize that other planets can go around the sun and not around the Earth. At the time, it was still the predominant theory that Earth was the center of the universe. That's an Aristotelian or Ptolemaic view of the universe, the geocentric idea that was accepted for quite some time, until the Copernican idea, which was placing the sun in the middle of the solar system, really changed things up. But it really helped us to better predict where things would be in the sky, including planets. So Galileo saw Venus's phases in the early 1600s with his own telescope, which continued to help convince him that not everything went around the Earth. And there are other things he looked at as well. The moon is going around Jupiter, the movement of sunspots on our sun, and even the rough appearance of the moon and how it was very imperfect looking at it through a telescope, all helped him to realize that things weren't as they seemed at the time. So Venus was a very important evidence in the Copernican theory, placing the sun in the center. So it's interesting that something as simple as the phases of Venus, where it's half full, or any other phases, can help you to understand our place in the universe. And again, that's why I love astronomy. These connections can always be made. So maybe you'll have a chance to think about that when you see Venus, maybe through binoculars or a telescope in any phase, but especially at dichotomy when you see it half full in the sky when it's really high above the horizon right now at this time. Now, if we stick with this area for a bit, what we have is not only Venus shining nicely, but also a couple more planets that have been huddling closer and closer together. These other two planets I'll mention are definitely not as bright as Venus, but again, you may notice them as these non-twinkling star-like objects, especially if you see Mars, because you can find Mars right here as this kind of reddish looking object. Since Mars is the red planet, that makes sense. And then slowly kind of getting closer to those two is the planet Saturn that we find here. So again, the morning is the best time to see planets right now, and will continue to be so for a good portion of 2022. But if we move through the rest of the week, watch where these planets end up in this area. So we're going to move on from Monday and Tuesday as we get into now Wednesday morning, Thursday, Friday, the 25th here, and you'll now see the moon kind of joining in the action here. And there's a half lit moon that you see there. So there's the moon at dichotomy itself, or half phase. But we'll continue on to the 26th, Then by the 27th here, that's Sunday morning, you'll find the crescent moon getting even closer to these planets. But look at where the planets are located now. They are even closer to each other. So they're huddling even more together, which is quite nice. But we'll actually move to Monday morning, even though that's next week. It's still worth mentioning that these planets and the moon will be really close to each other. So now you have a crescent moon, a pretty thin crescent moon here, Saturn there, there's Mars a little bit higher up, and there you have Venus outshining at least those two planets there. So you have 4 really nice solar system objects in this area within about a 5.3 degree circle or area of the sky. So that's pretty near each other and may provide a really nice photographic opportunity if you have clear skies in the morning looking towards this direction. So it's always nice to kind of look out for these conjunctions, these gathering of objects in the sky as you see here. And speaking of the moon, we do want to mention something related to the future of human spaceflight. So we'll zoom into the moon just to give us a better view of it. And just last week, our planetarium crew and I had a wonderful opportunity to witness the rollout of a new rocket that's being built by NASA. And maybe you've heard about this already because there's a new super heavy lift launch vehicle called the SLS, or the Space Launch System. And that's been in development for quite some time. It has been delayed a bit over the years, but now it's finally put together, and there was a big media opportunity to watch the rollout of this rocket fully stacked for the first time, and we had a chance to witness this. This new rocket, called again SLS, will eventually carry astronauts to the moon again in NASA's new program called Artemis. And I love that name because Artemis is the goddess of the moon who pulled the moon across the sky from Greek mythology. It's a great name, and especially being a goddess, because the slogan for the Artemis program is for the first woman and then next man to step foot on the moon. So it'll be very nice to have a much more diverse crew going to Earth's only natural satellite. So a new, very large rocket had to be developed. Something very similar to the Saturn V that brought us to the moon in the 60s and 70s during the Apollo program. So the rollout of this rocket was a big deal, and the pictures you're seeing here are ones that we captured as a team, getting a chance to see this up close. We first got to see the doors of the vehicle assembly building where these giant rockets are built open up slowly. And then later in the day on March 17th when we saw this, then the SLS rocket riding on the mobile launch platform, this more than 50-year-old transporter, slowly drove out of the vehicle assembly building, going less than 1 mile per hour. And it journeyed to the very historic launch pad called LC-39B that launched astronauts to the moon 50 years ago, and where the space shuttle launched as well. And so we got to watch that move by very slowly over many hours, and to see this massive rocket that stands 328 feet tall with about a 28-foot diameter rocket stage and some powerful engines. This is one of the most powerful rockets ever built. And to see it up close, slowly moving past us, was a real treat, an amazing experience. So some of these pictures kind of showing you what we saw as it moved by, and really kind of illustrates the future of exploration. So this is really NASA's first rocket that they've built since the space shuttle program has ended. Of course, NASA has really been relying on commercial partners like SpaceX, like United Launch Alliance to launch things into space, launch astronauts to the International Space Station. So it's been a great new era for space exploration, but it's also nice to see this rocket that's been in development for many years finally be unveiled to the public. And for this particular rollout, this is not for a launch yet. This is for what's called a wet dress rehearsal that will happen in April, where the rocket will be fueled up, and then a mock countdown will occur just to make sure all the sequences are working correctly. And then when that goes well, there possibly could be an uncrewed launch to the moon with this rocket by late spring or early summer. So we'll see when that is. So it's always exciting to witness this new technology, this new frontier in space exploration. We'll see where this kind of vehicle goes, but no matter what, it was an impressive sight to see. So stay tuned for more updates from us about the Artemis program and where it will go from here. Well, that's it for another edition of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you very much for tuning in. We hope to see you here at the Museum of Arts and Sciences at some point in the future, and definitely the Lohmann Planetarium. We're running shows daily. We always have some great programs to offer. So check out our website online for more information. With that, we hope to see you back here again. Take care, and of course, happy stargazing.